I think the CM Punk return on its own will be enough to get people watching,
Yes.
but I'm not sure how much legs that has.
Here's the funny thing is, to me, it's not the first show. It's the second show. That really matters.
It might be the third show where they've sold 700 tickets to.
No, but I mean in terms of creative vision for the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, and that'll be right after Forbidden Door too. No, that'll be the go home for Forbidden Door. That's gonna be really interesting. That show, that second show, like that's literally.
I agree.
You're gonna have all the
it's
Japanese
never the
guys
pilot
there.
It's never the pilot that's going to make or break you. It's always the follow up to the pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll find out soon enough. And speaking of their future, and I mean, and you know, honestly, this, I say in a lot of ways, Saturday is one of the most important shows in company history. Because they got to kick it off with a bang. They got to get a big audience. I think they probably had a big audience tonight, and because there was no competition, they advertised a big lineup. I'm expecting this show to do like 1 million viewers and like, you know, pretty close to like a 0.4 in the demo, maybe like
they
a 0.38.
only have baseball really to go up against, I think.
Right, which is nothing. Like, you know, they'll beat baseball. And so I think that this show tonight, you know, the idea is you put on a great show, you drive some people to Forbidden Door, you drive some eyeballs to Saturday. Saturday is the big one though, because you want to get as many people watching that show as possible, because their future is tied into how much money they're going to get for this Collision show. Because I really don't believe, especially after the interview that Tony Khan did today with Brandon Thurston and John Pollock, he was very non-committal on the idea. Like, he kind of confirmed that WBD did the option year, but that's all they've got. So the idea of them getting, $250 million a year, over 5 years is very much up in the air. I think it's tied into how well Collision does.
And WWE is still out there. They just exited their window of being exclusive to have to negotiate with its two partners.
And what we want. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't necessarily agree, but I can get there with you, because I think Collision could just end up being a massive write-off.
Well, if it is, they're not going to have nearly as much money as people thought they were going to have. Because I don't think they'll get an increase for Dynamite, but
it's not a great time slot.
It's a terrible time slot, but it's what WBD wants. So I'm sure whatever they put there, like, and I will say this, and there's been a lot of discussion around this, they're going to probably win the night most weeks, other than sports. Like, there's not much else on Saturday. Right. But there's not much else on Saturday. So even if they do like a 0.15 in the demo and 500,000 viewers, that's probably going to be better than anything else, other than
special events.
Football and special events. But like for your regularly scheduled programs, but that's because nobody airs anything on Saturdays.
Right.
But the reason I brought that up is they're in the negotiation window right now with WBD, trying to get an extension, and they've got four of their biggest stars actually, all with their contracts expiring. And Sean Ross Sapp had an update today, basically, kind of no news, but if you really read it, there's news there. They haven't signed yet. They are probably leaning towards signing, but it's anything but official. And there's kind of, you kind of get the sense from reading what he said that depending on how this thing with CM Punk goes, that may make their decision. Like if CM Punk turns out to be like he was, last September, and just throwing his weight around and getting everything he wants, they may not want to stick around. Maybe that's just me assuming. I don't know. But certainly if they don't get
necessarily, but on the other hand, they're separate for a reason. Now, right. I could see, like, if that show's successful.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of grumbling, possibly.
A little bit of grumbling, but if it's successful, you can keep them apart, and you're going to get a lot of money for Collision. You can afford to pay everyone. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
We never have to see the Bucks on Collision. We never have to see Punk on Dynamite. That's fine.
I could see Kenny going to WWE, but not necessarily the Bucks.
I'd kind of agree with that. And I think Hangman is such a good fit for AEW that and I think he's lost in WWE. Like
I think his issue in WWE would be his promos. I view. I mean, it's
maybe his size a bit too.
Well, I mean, he's taller than you think, but he's not a giant. It's so weird because I view Hangman in that kind of Magnum TA slot.
Right, and he was perfect for the NWA.
He was perfect for the NWA, but I was also convinced. I mean, I'm one of those people who, if he hadn't gotten hurt, I still think he does a run with Vince. I do. I think because Dusty would have probably balked at putting the belt on him, and he would have gone up. You know, he would have. Everybody left Crockett at one time or another. I mean,
maybe he ends up in Bret Hart's role,
except Sting. But yeah, I mean, and that's just it. I think he could succeed in like an NXT. He could carry NXT.
Oh yeah. But they're putting more effort into NXT. They want NXT to be better. I think Nick Khan
is Hangman's contract up, or is it just the three? Oh, no, is it? Okay.
Yeah, all of them. I think Kenny's was actually up in January, but they extended it. And the Bucks, they had taken a 1-year option and Hangman, I believe, at the beginning of the year. So their option is up at the end of this year.
Here's what I could also see happening. This would be unfortunate for them, is that they use this leverage and they all sign a deal with WWE, but WWE hates bringing in factions that are all together, and then he just splits them up.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would imagine if they came into NXT, they would be together, but yeah, maybe on the main roster.
Yeah.
It's like, but they brought in AJ and the Good Brothers together, and they kept them together.
They sort of did.
Yeah,
they sort of did after
Yeah, well, yeah, they kind of took AJ away from them.
They took AJ away from them, and then they eventually put them back together. But overall, I think the Bucks stay.
Kenny could also go to New Japan. He could go to like
he's not gonna make the money. I mean, it also just depends what they want. Do they just want a little bit of political control and stock options and to make good but not great money, or do they want the brass ring, so to speak?
And the nice cushy schedule, spending time with your family, all that. See, and that is where I think that might
having a voice in the room helps a lot in terms of your job prospects.
That may be the swing for the Bucks, whereas it's probably not as important to Kenny.
No.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a wife and kids, and he probably doesn't mind the travel, and probably the challenge, I would think, of having, and you know what? The other thing is, you couldn't say this 4 or 5 years ago. There's a lot of people in WWE that you can have great matches with. And I think that's important to Kenny. So Kenny and Gunther, Kenny and Cody, Kenny and Seth Rollins, and there's a lot more. I think
I'm going to go back to how they feel about Punk too, because if Vince goes in there and says, "We'll give you WrestleMania, the main event," that's a pretty big middle finger to CM Punk.
Absolutely. And and they'll do it, because you can do it. You got 2 nights of WrestleMania.
Yep,
you can easily do it.